Hello and welcome to Transitions, the show that will help you to transition through life. I'm Emily, I'm your host, and today we're going to be talking with Chris Powell, my co-host, about how he worked through the grief after his daughter passed away. As always, please like and follow Transitions on Instagram and Facebook at Transitions Podcast Show. You can always shoot us an email at transitionspodcast7@gmail.com or visit our webpage at transitionspodcast.com. We look forward to hearing from you. Our guest today is Chris Powell. He is a retired Navy Senior Chief Sonar Technician, coach, motivational speaker, and program coordinator with the John Maxwell team. Chris has a passion for helping others to become their best self. Hey, Chris, how are you?
Great. How are you?
Good. Thank you for being with us today.
Well, thank you. Considering that we're partners in this, I better be with you today.
So, Chris, I know you introduced yourself on our very first podcast, but I want you to reintroduce yourself today.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit.
All right. My name is Chris Powell. As Emily was saying, I'm a retired Navy Senior Chief. I was actually in aviation in the beginning. My first 17 years was in flying in P3s and off the carriers and S3s. And then I had a little heart situation. That's a transition, isn't it? Went to the surface fleet. You don't even know what kind of transition that was, because he went from one Navy military environment to a completely different one. And so I am 66. Emily and I host this together so that we can serve you and bring you to hopefully a place where you can prosper and you can really develop yourself. So I retired in 1995. Yes, I am an old man. I'm 66. And we have had 3 children. One of them is in heaven right now. We have 4 grandchildren and 1 on the way. Yay!
Yay!
Because granddads love grandchildren. I got to say that. And we have our daughter and 2 granddaughters coming in tomorrow. And
That's
so
exciting.
we're wrapping presents. Actually, we're not. Carla is. That's my wife. I've been married to her for 44 years. She's 27. I don't know how she does it, but she does, you know. And so I think the biggest thing that I have to offer is to help people in their life. I do have that passion to help people in their life to live to their best good. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes a lot of sense. I hear that passion in your voice when you speak, and I know you personally, so I definitely know that you like to help people. But when you're not helping people, what are you doing for fun?
Well, that's a good question, because I shouldn't say that. I do. I like to fish. We have some pretty good fishing spots around here. I know that not a lot of people are into fishing, but I've done this ever since I was a little guy. And I like to read, but fishing, just something about hanging into a good one on the line, you know. But I like to read. And maybe that's not recreation. I mean, it's all personal growth and development that I'm reading. So some people would think that's a task. It's quite enjoyable to me. I love to study. My wife thinks I could be a full-time student. I guess that's why I have 3 master's degrees back there, is because I just can't stop learning. And so I think my passion, and this is a recreation thing, is actually speaking. When we lost our daughter, therapy was really important in that I didn't have anybody to go to. There was no support group, none. And so I eventually got out of my shell and started going back into the public eye and started speaking. And I got to tell you, that was a therapy for me. So that was, I don't know if you could say that was fun or recreation. I can tell you that was cleansing for me, and that really helped me. So I'm seeing all sorts of things pop up. Sorry about that. So there are other things, of course, being with our grandkids. That's fun. We have a hoot with those grandkids, let me tell you. They will. One's 18 and one is 16. That's the ones that live here, and then the other one's coming in. That's going to be really, really fun because one's 14 and one's 11.
Well, that sounds really exciting.
It is. Lots of presents under the tree, I can tell you that. And then they're going to be chasing the dog around. Oh, that's the other thing, is our dog back here. She's
Emily.
laying right here, and her name is Emily. It's spelled completely different from you, Emily. And we did not name her after you. We did not know you when we got her. So
right.
But yeah, so that's what I like to do. Is I guess fun is different for everybody, isn't it?
It is very different for everyone.
And so what's fun to me may not be, if somebody says, oh, reading and this and that and studying, and they don't find any fun in it. Well, you asked what I did for fun.
Exactly. So, Chris, you mentioned your daughter passing. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened, what her story was?
Yeah. So, this gets a little sensitive, and I do get a little emotional on it. And she died on Good Friday of 2018. And we were in Lynchburg, Virginia. And we knew there were some pretty severe health situations. We knew that there were some underlying challenges with substance abuse, alcohol in particular, that stemmed from earlier in her life, in her teenage years. We knew there was bitterness to the highest degree because of something that happened in their marriage. We knew there was a lot of pain. We knew that she was self-medicating for that pain. We did not know some of the things that were actually going on. And some people say, why does God do these things? Well, God knows exactly what he's doing. And let me tell you, it's one of the most painful things I have to say, but it was the best thing that could have happened for the family, because the family was being torn apart. And we didn't know this until much later when we were talking to the grandkids. As a matter of fact, that when we moved down here, the grandkids wouldn't even come around us for the first year. We wondered why we even moved down. And then they eventually started warming up, and now we have a great relationship with them. But it took a long time to warm up, and then some things came out, and it was heart-wrenching, just heart-wrenching. And it all comes from bitterness. Every bit of that comes from bitterness. I've lost two family members, direct family members, my mother and my daughter, both of them from bitterness. It's not all the other stuff. It was that. Okay. So, but that leads to all the other pieces, doesn't it? And so she bled out. She actually, what I remember clearly, we were down here in a restaurant, and she had the spider veins, or whatever you call these. It's from
varicose?
Liver disease. No, it's not varicose.
No.
Her eyes were turning yellow. Her skin was yellow. They are. It's not veins. It's a anomaly on the skin that looks like a spider, and she was starting to develop them all over. And I looked at her and I started weeping, and she says, "Daddy, don't cry." Oh, man, that breaks me. It breaks my heart. She did that a couple of times where I started weeping because I knew she was slipping away, and all I could do was watch. We believe there could have been some underlying medical conditions too, like Hashimoto's disease. We're not clear and sure on that, but we think that there is a distinct possibility. So when you start seeing somebody slip away like that, and you just sit there and you can't do anything about it, it's just gut wrenching.
Now, I don't want to interrupt you, but can you explain to us, like, why you felt that you couldn't do anything? Like, what was it about the situation?
All right. So had we tried to do an intervention or something like that, first off, it wouldn't have probably worked anyway because she had the other underlying medical conditions that we didn't know about at the time. Second off, it would have ripped the family apart because nobody was going to go for it except somebody like me that knew that intervention was the only way to move in like that. Third off, to try and so there was a lot of dysfunction in the family, okay? To try and get everybody on board for an intervention, which was really the only answer at that point. It would have been impossible to get everybody on board. So had we attempted it and failed, it would have blown the entire family apart. Had we attempted it and just broached the subject with the family, it would have met so much resistance we couldn't have done it anyway. And on top of that, we were up in Lynchburg. They're down here, 3.5 hours away. So it's we could not directly connect on a daily basis or anything like that. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yeah. So it was excruciating. I mean, it's very sensitive to talk about even now, of course.
That's understandable.
But people do need to know this. I mean, this is real life stuff. And it's in families, a lot of families that look really good on the outside, but in the inside, it's just gripping them. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So you mentioned a couple of times that there were things going on that were dysfunctional. If you feel okay with telling us, like, what was that? If somebody got.
Well, let's do this after the break. I think we need to take a break.
Okay.
So why don't you lead us into the break?
So,
I just laid it right on you, didn't I?
We are going to take a break to hear from our sponsor, and we will return.
All right. Thank you.
Swing Into Their Dreams Foundation presents the Golf Tournament of the Year, raising scholarships for aspiring National Golf Club in Milton, Georgia. The inaugural HBCU Swing Into Their Dreams Charity Golf Tournament. Registration and gourmet continental breakfast begins at 8 a.m. and shotgun at 10 a.m. Award reception follows. Come enjoy a day of jazz, mimosa, cigars, cash bar, silent auction, and more. For more information, contact 770-686-7148. Their dreams. Don't miss it.
To our sponsor. Those that are just joining us, we're here with Chris Powell, who is a father, retired Navy, senior chief, sonar technician, life coach, motivational speaker, and program coordinator with the John Maxwell team.
So thank you, Emily, for hosting this. Thank you for your wonderful facilitation of this process. And before the break, you were going to ask me a question. And what was the question? Oh, dysfunction, wasn't it?
So, yes, I was asking you about the different experiences that you were going through with your daughter. Maybe you could describe.
So let's do the family unit as I could see it at that time. All right. She and I, we butted heads quite a bit, actually. As a matter of fact, we were down there, we were visiting one time, and I had a situation where I was a little confrontational with Carla. Okay. It doesn't happen a lot, but once in a while it does happen. And and it was her house, so she can do that. She interjected right in between us and she started yelling at me. So that's, but now Carla and we were just fine. Okay. But she came to the aid of her mama. Okay. Right. And so that is not an indication so much of dysfunction. Well, maybe a little bit. Where the dysfunction really came in was, I don't want to get into all the details because it's pretty dicey, but let's put it this way. There was an incident in their marriage that caused her extreme pain and bitterness, which then led to, before that, she wouldn't touch alcohol at all. Right after that, she was drinking unbelievable amounts, a case a night,
Well, that makes sense because we know that trauma will lead to substance abuse or some sort of mental health issue.
Exactly. And that's what happened to her.
Right. And I'm really sorry that you lost your daughter. Yeah. I can't imagine what that's like.
Yeah. You don't want to imagine what it's like. Nobody wants to. But what happened at that point was they had moved from one area to another area for his job. And actually, they moved back to Virginia Beach. While they were in Virginia Beach, everything seemed to be pretty good. Well, why? Because Mama and Daddy were around them. When they moved down here, then things started moving in a pretty rough spot. And again, the dysfunction came in. That bitterness started coming out towards the children. As I said, we did not have a clue about this until about a year after her death. And Wow. Then it started coming out. And it was obvious then why God took her home, because that whole family was about to collapse. Severe abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, and not a good environment. And so, it's probably the hardest thing for me to say that God knows what he's doing, and he did that to save the rest of the family. Is that a hard thing to say? Yes, it's a hard thing to say.
I can only imagine. Can you talk a little bit about how you cope now, how you were coping with her death, and maybe how, if you got your grandchildren help, or just coping skills or support?
So coping is a very interesting word, because coping means you're just settling for. I tried not to cope. I tried to come out of this, and I probably should have coped a little bit better instead of tried to push myself. What would happen was I do phone sales. I do all sorts of stuff. I pick up the phone, put it down, and cry. Pick up the phone, put it down, and cry. I do that day in, day out. And then I take 3 or 4 hour naps, and then I'd sleep a full day. What does that sound like? It sounds like depression, doesn't it?
It does.
It's exactly what it was. And so Carla and I can't really talk about this because we're living it. We're directly intertwined with it. Right. We can support each other, but that's not really a support group. We had no support group. So how I started emerging was exactly what I was saying, going out there finally and starting to speak again, to actually serve people again. And by the way, for everybody on here, if you are in this situation, you need a support group. Take my word from it, because the chances of you coming out all by yourself without anybody else out there to help you is almost impossible to do.
Well, you just actually answered my second question for you.
I like it.
Yes, you did exactly what I was going to say. You answered it. But what other types of support did you receive? Like, I know that at one point you had said that the John Maxwell team members.
Yeah. So I'm part of what's called the John Maxwell team. Had it not been for them, because it's really a family, it turns into a huge family. Okay, so this sounds like a pitch for the John Maxwell team. Come join us, but come join us through me. All right. So anyway, what happened is that they rallied around, and I just felt their strength and their consideration, and they really, really helped me come out of this. Not all at one time. They didn't smother me either. So the idea was that was the support group I needed at the time. It would have been nice to have other people, but I didn't, Did that answer that?
That did. So we're nearing the end of our podcast show. Can you give us any advice? So say somebody was in the same position as you. What advice would you give them?
Okay. First off, support group, like I was saying. Second off, prayer is really, really important. Third off is reflection. What's going on in my life? Somebody to talk to, that's support group again. The one big thing is cut the root of bitterness out of your life. Forgiveness is huge at this point. I forgave my daughter. That sounds a little surprising, but I forgave my daughter. I forgave God. That sounds a little surprising too, but that prevents that root of bitterness. So forgiveness is and gratefulness. Forgiveness and gratefulness are the key points. They're like bookends for rooting out that bitterness. And that bitter seed, by the way, I will tell you, will kill you if you have that. Okay? Does that answer that?
It does. Thank you. Do you have any resources that you can provide the listeners? Any support groups that you may want them to know about?
So there's a grief support group probably in your area. There is a Celebrate Recovery, which is an overall support group for not just addiction, but anything you're going through with this. There are books, of course. There are, I would recommend that you go to seminars. And here's the other thing. You don't want to center just on grief and loss, because if you do that, then you're just focusing all your attention on that. That's depressing all by itself. So you want to be around people that are coming through the same kind of scenario that maybe is a little bit advanced. And I'm open to mentoring and coaching. Okay. So if anybody wants mentoring or coaching through this process, it's completely free. I don't charge anything for that. Then I'm always here. So I'm a resource. How about that?
Well,
and just so you know, I have a pastoral counseling degree, so I can do that piece pretty good.
Well, thank you, Chris, for speaking with us today about such a sensitive topic. I'm really sorry for the loss of your daughter, but it's good to know that you have forgiven her and that you're moving past or moving on with your life. And I don't really like to say that, but you have to move on, right? Yes. If you don't move on, the only other alternative is to stay stuck. So I mean that in a good way. We are going to be coming to an end, so I do want to remind our listeners to don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Transitions Podcast, and visit our website at transitionspodcast7.com to subscribe to updates. And also you can always email us at transitionspodcast7@gmail.com.
And let me put in a little plug for our wonderful host, WYTV7. And they take contributions. If you want to keep things like this, if this is valuable to you, please contribute. Go to the website, WYTV7.com. I believe it is. Is that right? And contribute, okay? Yeah, if you want to do a podcast, hey, just start talking. Maybe you can get on a podcast too. And we're always looking for people, by the way.
Yes.
We're always looking for people to interview.
And thank you.
Okay. I'm throwing it back to you.
Oh, so you mentioned that we're looking for people.
Mm-hmm.
And what are we looking for? So why don't you describe what type of person we're looking for, or what, you know.
So somebody that it would be good is somebody that's going through a transition, like a military to civilian transition, a prison to civilian transition, a life event like I had, even small transitions in their lives that aren't all this huge upheaval. It could be a small transition, a weight gain or a weight loss, or a medical piece where the entire life is not impacted, but portions of the life. Anybody like that. And somebody that wants to get their word out. Go ahead.
So, sorry, one last thing. If you would like to connect with Chris, you can follow him on Instagram and Facebook, and you can also email him at Chris Powell at powelladvisory.com.
Yeah, Chris at powelladvisory.com. Chris at powelladvisory.com.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So why don't you lead us out of here?
So thank you for listening to our podcast show today, and we will see you soon.